Hey, what's up, Sheldon, Mr.
Chevy, what's
Nasty?
going on, brother?
Well, I'm getting a little bit of feedback on my computer, but I think I'm doing okay. How about you?
Yeah, you sound good to me on my end.
Yeah. Well, you sound always crisp and clear, and I'm happy to be back on the air with you. Well, as people join in, um, I was listening to AC show, AC Sports Live, that comes on to the
Yeah.
NGBN network right before us, and he is the smoothest guy on the radio, and he's part of that great Tuesday night lineup with the Decade Show and his show and Hawk Talk, and then. I don't get to catch too much of his show, but I caught the segment where he was talking about Shohei Ohtani, whose interpreter got nabbed for gambling
Yeah.
on sports. And AC said something that like kind of resonated with me today. He was talking about gambling. He says, when you go to gamble, like, and you just win, even if it's a little bit, but you win, and that feeling you get. Like, have you ever had that feeling where you maybe you put $5 down, or even if you win a scratchy lotto, like it feels
I've been
good,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Today I got pranked. So today I pull into the office, and we have this thing in the Calgary Fire Department where every firefighter takes, a little bit off their paycheck, and it goes to the Firefighters Toy Association, which is a charity that buys toys for underprivileged families. And every year they do a huge Christmas party. They give baskets of presents to families that don't have that are underprivileged. And so most all the firefighters have this deduction off their paycheck, and it's also part of a little lottery. And every quarterly they hand out the prizes, right? And so my boss is like, he talks to my colleague, and we're in cubicles. He's like, "Hey, should we show him?" I'm like, "What's going on?" And he prints out a page and he puts it out. And it's the sheet that they send out, and it shows lists all the winners. And there's my name at the top of the list, eh? $3,000. And I jumped out of my chair, and it was like this jumping silent fist bump. Like, the old Toyota commercials, like when they freeze the guy. I was like, "Ah!" Like I had to meet with my financial planner, and we had to work on some
Like
things
you
yesterday.
felt it. You were
Oh
spending that
man,
money. You were like, oh my God, I can clear up this. I can clear up that. Couldn't be better timing, God. Thank you.
And like when I landed in my chair, I was like, "Guys, I'm taking us out for dinner, and I'm buying donuts for the rest of the floor." I was just so happy. Like it was this ultimate. And I was like, "Guys, I never win anything." And then my boss he's like, "Man, I feel so bad." He's like, "Chev," he's like, "We're just gooning you." I'm like, No. That was real, right? He's like, "No." I was like, You can't erase the name. Anyway, so I checked my email, and lo and behold, it's some dude named Rob on C shift that won. But anyways, it was such a good get. But I was so high. Like I jumped. I literally jumped. And I was gonna share the wealth. I was gonna buy them a nice dinner. And Jeff, Todd, Alex, Ben, you guys aren't getting dinner. And that's all I got for you.
Yeah, guys. That's their loss, Chev. You know what, though? We've also got April 1st coming up soon. So maybe we can sit down, get some of you guys out there in the audience, come up with a great way to get some revenge for Chevy. Because I know that feeling. That hurts, man. It hurts. You got played, and you're going to have to figure out what to do about it. But tonight, Chev, thanks for the great story. We have, I hope, a great show for you guys today. This week, this is another week where we went in with a plan, got hit in the mouth, and just everything else happened. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about the that boat incident. One of the scariest things I could ever imagine just happened in Baltimore. We're going to get into that a little bit. NFL comes out with some new rule changes that is banning some forms of tackling, guys. And this is something I haven't tackled a guy for real for years. But Chev, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this one. Those of you guys that have been following along, it's the hip drop tackle. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that is. Later in the show, I don't know, get to a little Tyson versus Jake Paul.
Yeah, some of our leftovers. We started that last week, right?
Leftovers.
Like, we talk so much. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's you. I don't know. Sometimes we go to overtime, but like you said, we have a plan and we don't always get to it. So a third segment and possibly into overtime. Sheldon said no, but possibly into overtime. We're going to hit some of the leftovers and some of the new topics. I think you mentioned that you're going to, I don't know if you're going to give me an apology. I don't think that's the word, but maybe a retraction on a previous.
No, I've changed the take. I think you're allowed to do that, right? I changed the take.
Yeah.
I watched the show this weekend that completely changed the take I had just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to we're going to talk about that for little nasty thoughts in the third.
Well, if you're curious about what Sheldon's reversal is, stick with us for the full hour. We're Chevy and Nasty, and this is The Ride.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty every Tuesday at 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And Chev, I think you mentioned it briefly before. Very excited to announce we have a brand new sponsor, a brand new partner, a brand new member of our family. Jenna, throw them up there for us if you don't mind. This one comes to us, Performance Freight Management, a logistics company. The way I understand their business, I get to meet them tomorrow night where we're going to have a real sit down in depth. This guy, you see the big ship, you see the big cranes, you see the planes. That crane is actually an intermodal. This guy takes anything that you've got here and need to get over there, and he finds a way to do it. Performance Freight Management. I can't wait to let you guys know a little bit more about them. But you talk about those little wins with the casino. I find these little wins when somebody comes up and says, man, I'm loving what you're doing. Let me get behind this.
Well, and the thing is, we've got some great people supporting us. Hey, starts with Jenna behind the cameras. Jenna helps us out big time. She makes us look good. She gets all the graphics up, all the shows. She puts it all together. So thank you, Jenna. But thank you, all of you that follow and listen to the show. You follow us for a reason. Maybe we speak to you. Maybe we speak to things that you enjoy. And that's what we're creating with The Ride. We want to take you somewhere. And, my good buddy, Daryl, who owns Performance Freight Management, he's been on the ride. He loves the ride. He loves the mission. He loves the two goofy knuckleheads that joke around, talk sports, pop culture, but he also really, really has a heart for the serious issues that we tackle. Men's issues, men's in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, talking about their health, their mental health, and the challenges we have as we age as men, and the connection that we crave, the connection we need. And so Daryl, Performance Freight Management, he's been on board. We've been talking for a number of months, and he said, you know what, it's time to get on the ride. And so he's joining us. He's on the ride. He's our title sponsor. If any of you want to sponsor the ride, to jump on board, we want to grow with you. Our show is, we're a startup, right? You're with us, but we want to grow.
Crude Energy comments, another startup. I know you guys are feeling that joy of the little successes as well. But Chevy, why don't we celebrate our new sponsor with an ode to Performance Freight Management?
Yeah, let's do. Well, it sort of is. I guess we'll get right into the poem. I love it. Let's do it. Poem time. We need the music. There it is.
The 300-pound poets. Are we shrinking or growing? It's your Tuesday night rhyme. So let's get these rhymes flowing.
Well, we got a new sponsor, so we might be growing. It was long overdue, but well worth the wait. Our newest show partner can handle all your freight and storage needs too.
There you go. Good one. Well, we're talking some sports and obviously some world events too. So much to cover before Jenna tells us sends us our overtime cue.
But a boat hit a bridge, which caused it to fall. We'll talk about that, and we'll also hit maybe Tyson versus Jake Paul.
The Edmonton Elks just revealed a new green and gold crest meant to celebrate 75 years back in a time when they were the best. Not so much anymore, Chev.
Yeah, no. And they're not the Eskimos anymore. They're the Elks.
No, they're not.
Yeah. So we can't fit it all into this 6-stanza rap. You're on the ride with Chevy and Nasty, and every week we pray that our show isn't crap. Yeah,
for the expression there on your face, we weren't meant to go to the poem there. And second to that, I think did I just call them the Eskimos for real? Did I?
I don't know if you did. A little bit over on your camera. I think you're just a little bit off. And yeah, there you go. You got to get right to the middle there. No, now you're on the other side. You got to come towards me.
There we go. Right there.
Okay. You're messing with me. Yeah. How do I turn this view off? Because I got to see the comments. Yeah. So welcome to the ride, Chevy and Nasty. Thank you for sitting through our poem. Yeah, we mentioned it. We didn't purposely want to segue from a freight company to a boat hitting a bridge, but I don't think there's a better segue than that. Is the new. So as Sheldon mentioned, we met last night. We spoke from 10 o'clock to about 11:30, and then we went to bed thinking about the show. We kind of had it mapped out in our heads, but the way things happen from that Monday night to the time show kicks off, something big happens, or something happens that gets us talking. And when a boat hits a bridge, that's a big deal. But when a boat hits a bridge, like a highway bridge, not a little dinky bridge, and that bridge collapses, that's a big deal. And so we had to talk about that.
Well, first of all, that's one of the scariest things that you could ever imagine. Like I have a bit of a phobia with bridges and overpasses anyway. Wondering what would have happened if I'm under it and it fell, or what would it feel like to free fall 80 feet? Well, this just last night, I mean, literally 24 hours ago in Baltimore, they experienced exactly just that. A cargo ship, container ship called Adassa was just leaving port and was heading around to make its long trip down the southern tip of South America and then on to wherever it was going, I think somewhere in Singapore. And they're doing it because it was a safe route with some of the pirates and other things that are going on. But before they even lost the port, Chev, they're driving along, and as they're about to clear a bridge, 4 minutes before a bridge, they're going about 8 knots, right? That's 9 miles an hour, 8 miles an hour, whatever they're going. Power shuts off. They lose all propulsion. And this thing is bigger than a dozen steam trains, and it can't stop and it can't turn, dude. Yep.
And they had experienced nautical masters piloting the ship. I guess my understanding, and I don't know too much, but just saw a comment from Daryl, our newest show sponsor. Welcome to the show, Daryl, and welcome to the chat. You're going to get lots of love tonight.
Yes, sir.
But we're talking about that ship that hit the bridge in Baltimore, and yeah, so apparently they for every time they're in the United States, any ship that's leaving port or coming into port has to engage the services of an experienced pilot from the area. So the person that was piloting the ship knew what he was doing. It's just, they lost power, and they attempted several times to correct the course, and that ship. Not just 3 football fields long, but I think they said it's about 7 Boeing 737s long, which we talked about Boeing last week, and now we're talking about the boat this week. But yeah, they called Mayday. They had the opportunity to clear the bridge of most all traffic. Unfortunately, there were 8 workers that were caught. I guess 8 construction workers that were, if I'm not mistaken, Sheldon, you mentioned they were filling potholes.
They're filling potholes. So, and here's the thing. So when I heard that, I was like, geez, they were able to get the cops over there. They're able to shut down the bridge. Surely someone could have run out there and picked them up. Right. And I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. I'm laughing because it's really uncomfortable. And I like, did somebody drop the ball? But then today I was going through the timeline, and this is what's crazy. I mean, it's a boat. It doesn't feel fast, but when you weigh as many tons as that thing does, even going 9 miles an hour is fast. It was at 124 that you can see from the bridge cameras that the lights started flickering on and off. At 125, the ship just starts to turn. And I don't know if that was the current or whatever, but literally a minute later, it was dead in the water. 126, the captain comes on. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
Yeah.
And thank God they got to the authorities, because they were able to get the police down there and close off traffic to that bridge at 120. And that was at 126. They made the mayday call. 127, Chev, the bridge came down.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there. I'm still looking for one like full real-time show, because what I'm watching, when I'm seeing that, I'm seeing car lights going.
Yes.
Car lights are going. And then you see the last 2 or 3 cars that are just flying because they're like, woohoo, cops tried to stop me, but I found a way through past. I ignored them and went fast. Dude, that was almost like a death sentence.
Oh my goodness. And you said it, like the time. I've seen the time lapse video. I've checked it out a couple of times. See the the post pictures, and it's hairy. It looks fake, right? And if I think back to a time where a camera caught something so I guess so grand. I mean, I can remember back to the first time that I watched the Twin Towers fall on 9/11. It was surreal. Like you can't even, from the pictures, you can't even grasp just how big those ships are. And then the ship looks small compared to the bridge. Like that's a major event. And obviously it's such a tragedy. People lose their lives doing that. I'm surprised not more people lost their lives
it's crazy. So instantly. So, and it was another 10 minutes before fire and rescue got on scene, but they very quickly found the two guys in the water. The one guy declined medical treatment. He survived a 200-foot fall. The other guy was apparently pretty beat up. I don't know exactly. They haven't said what, but he's in a trauma hospital right now in critical condition. But it's just one of those things. Could you imagine falling off that height with the whole bridge, that whole structure coming from me? It's one thing to watch 9/11. It's another thing to be going down with that bridge. I could only imagine the horror.
You know what? It's interesting. It's you never know what you're going to prepare for. We got a comment up there from Rob Evans. Rob Evans, he's a loyal follower of the show. He's a 911 dispatcher, but he's also the fire chief of Redwood Meadows Fire Department, just out in by Bragg Creek. And Rob's seen some stuff. Rob's had to call in helicopter rescues. He's seen some stuff, and his comment there, 120 has arrived on scene. And like how do you call that one on the radio? Hey, dispatch, the entire bridge is gone. Like that's a big event. It wasn't a mass casualty event, but it's definitely a mass casualty type event because it's so grand. And with all the training you have, I mean, I go back to my firefighter training. We never talked about an entire bridge falling. We've talked. We have guys that deal with special rescue. We have a technical rescue team in Calgary that deals with technical rescue situations, whether it's high angle, trench rescue, collapse, but not a collapse of that scale. It is unfortunate that 6 people lost their lives, but it's probably a miracle that
it's a miracle
more people didn't.
This is the miracle on the Hudson. Except if instead of landing on the river, if you had to land on a highway, like it is inconceivable to me. They managed to, first responders got there in time to block traffic. It took the fire department another 10 minutes to get there. What would it take to get those police cars on site, both sides of the bridge? This could have been far worse than it was. And, just thank God there's some good people working on it. And even with the fire crews, I wonder, September 11th was so long ago. That was 20 plus years. And now, even when I used to go to New York, they're still doing drills and trials. Are we still practicing those mass casualty events?
Well, absolutely, more so than ever now, because a mass casualty. I mean, we're kind of shifting the conversation here, which is fine. But mass casualty events are happening everywhere all the time. You look in Russia, there was a mall shooting. You look in the United States with all the school shootings or the theater shooting. I was thinking of France where they did the concert. Yeah. So mass casualty situations are being practiced and drilled for all the time, and there's a lot of interoperability between police, fire, ambulance, because they have to be ready for this. It's coming, and it's not as much here in Canada, but every week we see a mass shooting in the United States, and that is, the boots on the ground to be the first, like you say, the first responders. It's the police, it's the fire, it's the ambulance. So it's definitely practiced in this situation. I don't think the actual mass casualty aspect of it, but definitely the coordination of making sure that nobody else was hurt. They got to set a perimeter. They got to make sure that no one approaches the scene, because you know what? Curiosity kills people too, right? And we want to make sure that we don't make light of this, because last night you see, a boat hit a bridge, and then you're thinking, what's going on? Hey, AC, we mentioned you before. AC joining us on the ride here. But yeah, no, crazy event. There was so much we want to talk about. Looks like we're going to leave it for some leftovers, because we're going to have to take a break now. Thank you for joining us, everyone that's here. Again, we announced our new show sponsor, Performance Freight Management, not just a segment sponsor, but title sponsor for the show. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to Daryl who's joining us tonight, checking out the show. If you're following us, make sure you also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're at Chevy and Nasty. Of course, we're here on the NGBN.TV network, so you can stream our show every week live on the network on Roku, Amazon, Android, soon to be Apple. Am I forgetting anything, Sheldon?
I think you got it, bud.
So let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some sports because, we like sports. So break time. See you in a bit.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Hello, my name is Charles Schultz, host of The Edge of Greatness. I hope you choose to join me on a journey into discovering the greatness in your life through the exploration of 7 pillars: purpose, mindset, resilience, discipline, commitment, people, and courage. Hope to see you there.
Yes, sir.
And welcome back to the ride with Chevy and Nasty on this fine Tuesday evening. We're coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta. And hey, I'm excited to see an old friend of the old radio show, Jason Catoni. Now, Jason Catoni, this is right up his alley. He's also another first responder. I don't know why you have so many first responders on the show, but he's kind of more like a Batman of first responders. This guy's got he's got a real estate license in this mega real estate enterprise going on, but he's also got a company. Because he's Italian, he figured I better do some concrete work too. And Shabs, it is late. It's rare that you're up this late, but thanks for joining us tonight. You're always welcome on the ride.
And then our friends Michael and Dr. Isabel Hussinger joining us from is New Zealand considered down under? I mean, they always associate with Australia, but they're in New Zealand. They're in New Zealand. The chef and MD team, or the MD and chef team show. Love their show. They have such great energy. Thank you for joining us. They always tune in each week. And again, all of you, this segment sponsored by We Drone Real Estate Media. And let's get into it. We talked NFL. We love the NFL. The NFL season just seems like it wrapped up. Okay. And they had the rules change. A lot of eyebrows were raised when the NFL the owners decided to ban what they call the hip drop tackle. Now, hitting in the NFL has evolved over the years. I mean, when you and I played, and even the time before, people led with the head, people used their bodies as missiles. And then when, sort of around 2010 to 2014, when a lot more research about concussions, a lot more, spotlight on the impact of concussions and CTE, with the release of the movie Concussion with Will Smith, there was a lot of negative attention put on the sport of football, on the practice of hitting, and it really, really stigmatized the sport. And so things were done to change the sport. And one of the people
good things were done too.
Yeah,
right? I think the first thing they did is they took away, for me, I used to call it the 3-step rule on hitting a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
They took it down to you can't finish a step, right? You can finish a step, but you can't take a step and hit him. You can't hit head to head, and you can't land with your weight on them.
And you can't hit below the knees. And that's on the quarterback, because we're trying to protect those guys. We know in the NFL, for as many high profile quarterbacks and guys that are paid, there really are only a few guys that teams can rely on consistently to win games. I mean, quarterbacks get paid a lot, but some of the quarterbacks that are getting paid a lot haven't won a lot of games. And when I talk about winning games, I mean winning in the playoffs when it counts.
Yeah.
There's very few guys that you could say, when we go to playoffs with this guy, we're going to win, right?
Yeah.
So they have to keep guys healthy, because once you knock number one out of the game,
then it changes, and it changes for everybody on that team and all the fans in that city. Fast forward a few years, and they take out the horse collar, right? When you pull a guy from behind and pull him backwards, and what that does is it bends your knees and hips and ankles all to joint. You usually end up popping a knee out or an injury. I would also say that was a good one, because it was an easy one to call on the field.
And if you recall, let's just relate the horse collar to our playing experience. We here in Calgary, everyone remembers Kenyon Rambo had a great career up here with the Stampeders as a receiver. His career was basically ended by a horse collar tackle. He came back from it, but he was never the same. Tore his knee. He was running down, got pulled from behind, tore his knee, and he was never the same. And I saw that actually happen to a guy in Europe as well on my team with the Barcelona Dragons. But one of the things that did develop, they didn't just change the rules; they changed the way they tackled. If you recall, Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawks coach, our friend Dave DeRocha, he's got the Hawk Talk. He loves Seahawks. Rubio loves the Seahawks. Well, they were the ones that spearheaded that Hawk tackling technique. The videos of them doing their tackling drills circulating all around the NFL. When they had the Legion of Boom, they were the best, most surest tacklers, and they stole a page from the rugby books. And it got the head out of the contact. It was a secure hit. But you know what? Some of that Hawk tackling involved keeping your head out of it, wrapping, and rolling, which it became safer for the head hits, but now it's causing these lower body orthopedic injuries. And it morphed into this thing where guys weaponized their speed and their weight and that roll, where it became the hip drop, which has caused a bunch of injuries, which has now been outlawed. And the NFL Players Association is against this move, because again, there's got to be a balance between, guys got to make their living and we got to protect players, which I'm actually surprised that the PA came out against it, because they have a really tough role. They got to protect everyone's jobs. They got to protect everyone's jobs, but then they got to fight for everyone's health.
So when you look at this, so they have, because of the change in tackling, right? Like, we're no longer, you can't be considered a projectile and you can't lead with your head. And that's the vintage we played in, right? And then as long as, be the hammer, not the nail. If you're going fast enough, it didn't really hurt you. It might hurt the other guy. But now when you can't do that, you have to get the guy down. And because of the angle, and you're always taught, anybody that's played football, you have to keep your feet driving and run through a tackle. Yeah. But when you've got 3 yards before the end zone or the first down marker, or if you're a defensive tackle and you're hitting that running back coming through the line and he's got all the momentum, what the hip drop tackle essentially is you wrap him up with both hands, one or two hands, you drop and you twist to bring him to the ground. In theory and in practice, it's a safe move, but at velocity, guys are getting hurt, Chef. And so I looked a little deeper into some of the stats on this thing. First off, how common is the tackle? Well, the NFL did a good job when making this announcement. They came out and said that in the last year there was 230 instances of the hip drop tackle, or roughly one per game. But they also found there were 15 missed time injuries related to those tackles. So 6.5% of the tackles resulted in a player missing time. And I don't know if that was a whole game, a few plays, or what. But if you look at that, if every tackle was like that, football would be seeing 100 tackles in a game. You'd have 7 lost time injuries per game.
Yeah.
Are they onto something here? In terms of safety, we'll talk officiating here in a second. But in terms of safety, is this like the horse collar? Is this something you think you should take out of the game? And is it something players are able to take out of the game?
I guess, it's the motivation. I guess the game will be safer by doing this. It will change the complexion of the game slightly, but you always wonder the motivation. Is it to keep players safe, or is it to protect their investment? You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
it's not because they care about the safety of the players. Jerry Jones cares about Dak Prescott not losing his legs because he does not have a suitable backup if he goes down. And their playoff hopes are, and I love the Cowboys, they're tenuous at best with Dak at the helm. You know what I mean? So it's really not about the players, it's about the money. And let's be real. If we're going to say that's what it is, then let's make a whole bunch of rules to protect the guys that make the big bucks so we can keep them on the field. And then at least everyone knows, because what I worry about is, everyone complains about the officials. The officials have the toughest job in sport. They've got to not only compete with every armchair quarterback out there, they also have the benefit or the disadvantage of having all this technology that second guesses every one of their calls. And anytime you put a call like this, which is a true judgment call, in their hands, it's going to make people upset, because you might see that tackle happening one game and one crew doesn't call it. And then the next game, it's called. And so then it feeds my worries, that it feeds all these narratives that the NFL is scripted, that it does all these things, and it creates a gray area for that referee. I mean, they have a hard enough time calling the game with the rules as it is, and then adding these slight nuances. You almost need more referees on the field.
So, or give them more flags. But as Rob Evans just said, but how about this? So what if we found a hybrid model? Right. And just picture this for 1 second. So you're going down as a defender, you're going to make the tackle. You've identified that I need to get him down. And the offensive players, he's also at fault in this too. He's trying to strive for whatever reason to get that first down or that game-winning touchdown. He's not going to stop until I bring him down. What if we made it easier on everyone and had receivers start wearing a belt with their own flags, right? So as I go flying in there to take him out, instead of taking him out from a strange angle tackle, what if I just pulled out a flag? And at that point, if I got his flag, all forward momentum stops and the play's over and we go back to the huddle. Is that an acceptable alternative?
So you're proposing that they turn it into the National Flag League?
Well, I think that's kind of where we're heading.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of guys that played in our era or that played just before this that would argue that this is no longer football and we're getting away from football, but it's keeping exciting players in the game. And I'm trying to see it from a perspective from the eyes of a fan, even a new fan that didn't know the game that we played. But to say, hey, I know that my favorite running back is going to be in the game longer because he takes a lot of hits in the game, but now there's less times where linebackers are flying in from the side and rolling up his legs, and there's a better chance he won't tear his MCL, his ACL, or his Achilles, and we could keep him on the field longer. So from a fan's perspective, it might be not a better game because they won't know the game we played, but it will be a game that keeps their star players in the game. And that's important because when you talk about not just supporting NFL player contracts, you're supporting an entire industrial complex in terms of the gambling, in terms of the fantasy leagues. Like, a player's health is so huge. That's why the NFL publishes their injury reports early in the week, because they have to set odds. It's big business. And I guess keeping those guys up and running and playing and not on the sideline collecting a check is what's important. And if you take it a step further, when we talk about rule changes to protect players, and keep them on the field. The NFL also proposed to change the kickoff format. So a few years ago, they moved the ball forward. And I think the NFL kickoff is crummy the way it is.
I agree. It's pointless, right?
It's pointless. You start the game, some Aussie kicker with the leg the size of a howitzer cannon kicks the ball, goes through the end zone. They go to commercial, and then it's first down. It's like, come on, like they all but eliminated the kickoff. And again, being someone who played in both leagues when the kickoffs mattered in both leagues, I was still a fan of the CFL game more than the NFL game. But since they changed that kickoff in the NFL, gosh, it sure made that game a lot more boring and longer. Whereas CFL always maintained the integrity of the kickoff. But what they're changing to, go ahead.
Well, so obviously they changed it. It wasn't working out. It is bad TV. And now they are going to, was it the USFL, XFL, or did they both do it? What are they going to do? Line them up on the 25 yards apart?
What they're doing is they're going to put them on the 5 yards apart. I believe one team starts on their own 40 and the other team starts on the 35. And then the kicker starts behind. They kick the ball. No, they're 5 yards apart. So 9 guys line up 5 yards apart, 9 guys. And no one's allowed to run until the kicker, the returner catches the ball. So it's a 5 yard run to contact, create an opening, and basically it puts the onus on the returner to get upfield and find a seam and hit it and see if you can.
So let me ask you this. So you've seen this in some of the other leagues, and I'm intrigued by that. Like that has got some interest to me. But and I'm not saying it should go back to the way it used to be, but is that football? Like, does that seem like a football play to start 5 yards apart?
I would rather see guys hitting each other at the start of the game on the first play of the game than the ball kicked to the end zone. Is it perfect? No.
Would you rather see the ball just start at the 30?
No. No, you know what? There's an excitement. As a traditionalist, there's some type of big excitement around that kicker kicking off the game. That's why they call it Sunday kickoff. It starts with a kick. And I think that's important. How they manage the action after that kick, I think this is a step in the right direction. If you recall, when the XFL came out in 2001, their kickoff proposal, the first iteration of the XFL, was 2 guys head to head, the ball in the middle, and they sprint towards each other. And it was just like a game of chicken. Yeah, I like this. And I believe that on the strength of the XFL's numbers, injuries on kickoffs were down 20% compared to an equivalent sample size in the NFL. And so I think the NFL saw this and said, hey, you know what? They're onto something. It is an exciting play, not the same as it used to be, but way more exciting than it is. Let's adopt it. So they're doing it for a trial. I think this is good because it'll keep guys on the field. NFL rosters are very limited. Maybe the CFL will go to something like this because that's the thing when the CFL.
What if you made them kick with their non-dominant foot? Like, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
You're all full of ideas today. You know what? You want to change everything.
You know what? I know there's a need for a change, and I'm not even going to hate on this new tackling rule. I'm gonna my opinion's out on it a little bit. I'm all for making the game safer. I just don't like what they're doing, and I'm not sure I'm crazy about that weird kickoff thing where everybody's lined up and standing around facing each other, right? But
we're gonna talk about something else that might not make you crazy in the game of football. But before we do that, we just want to welcome everyone that's joining us. Thanks for all the comments. Trying to read them as we go. Some of you guys are having great conversations based on our last topic, which I love, with Rob Evans and Nanamana talking about being first on scene. But yeah, a lot of great ideas for rule changes and kickoffs. The thing is, football fans hate change typically. Traditionalists don't like the new stuff. New people don't like what the old are doing. But somewhere, like you said, you have to have a hybrid. When we're talking about football, there was no bigger change than a couple of years ago when one of the most storied franchises in professional football, forget the CFL, changed their name from the Edmonton Eskimos to the Edmonton Elks. Now, we're talking about a franchise that built the foundation of the City of Champions. Edmonton, Alberta was known as the City of Champions on the strength of the 5 in a row Stanley Cups, 5 in a row Grey Cups in the 80s. And this year, the Edmonton Football Club is celebrating their 75th anniversary. And yesterday they just revealed their 75th anniversary logo, which kind of looks more like a crest to me. But I'm torn. I'm torn.
Yeah,
Sheldon, I'm torn because they changed the name from the Eskimos to the Elks, and I get why they did it. I don't know if the jury's out for me if I agree with it or not, because I have a huge emotional connection to the Edmonton Eskimos. I played for them for 2 years. I was drafted by the Eskimos. I went to 2 Grey Cups with the Eskimos. I won one of my championship rings. I'm part of the Edmonton Eskimo story. When you walk in the locker room, as you know, because you did as well, it said once an Eskimo, always an Eskimo. 75 years of tradition.
Chevy, let me ask this: How did you break the defensive huddle?
Yeah, bone on three. Bone on three.
Brotherhood of Nasty Eskimos.
Yeah.
And I was drafted to them as well. In fact, I walked into that auditorium with Ron Lancaster was my coach in '98. And he, being a Saskatchewan kid, sitting there in a room with Ron Lancaster talking to you was epic. But his love and respect for that organization just gave me goosebumps. Man, you're all hand selected to be here. And he talked to us about the legacy.
Yeah.
Now I'm not one of those guys, like in a lot of ways, I am that old guy standing on my front porch throwing bricks at kids, telling them to get off my lawn. When it comes to changing a team names because of different ethnic sensitivities, at times I really do see a place for that. I get it. You look at the Cleveland Indians and the logo. You look at the Washington Redskins, and you can really make a case for that. I look at the Florida State Seminoles. And I love that tradition. Their relationship with the university and the Seminole tribes coming out there with the Chiefs spearing the spear into the center field. It's sort of, to me, it inspires me to what's great about where our cultures come from. No doubt it's come from a lot of issues and a lot of problems in the past. If you want to tell me that the name Eskimo was derogatory towards our Inuit, you know what? Great, right? Sure, I'll take that. But I never knew that as a kid growing up. I just looked at that great tradition, and it made me think of the North. It made me think about what an Eskimo was, which you're not supposed to say now. You're supposed to say Inuit, but I didn't hear a whole lot of voices from the North. I wish I heard more voices from the North about how they felt.
Yeah, and it was an interesting time, right? Because there was a lot of pressure. It was that the height of that, some people will call it woke, but
sensitivities, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was the height. There was a lot of, the internet has a lot of power and had a lot of power to sway opinion and sway thought. And, the Redskins had been fighting it forever before they became the Washington Football Club and then the Commanders. And I actually like the Washington Football Club name. Cleveland Indians had been under pressure forever. Edmonton was kind of flying under the radar. I believe the year before they changed the name, they did a consultation with members of different tribes of the North. And I remember even Jordan Tutu, former NHL player who was, I believe, from Northern Alberta, maybe one of the territories, was on the Fan 960 here in Calgary talking about it. And he said he didn't have a problem with it. He said many people didn't have a problem with it. And Edmonton went with that. And it wasn't until the movement to change those names got a little bit stronger. They changed my old college name. My college was the McGill Redmen. I played for the McGill Redmen, and the McGill Redmen name didn't even originate from Native tribes. It dated back to old Scottish heritage when there was the Reds and the Blues. That's why you have the Toronto Varsity Blues. You had the color
of your kilt.
But what happened was in the 60s or 50s, the McGill football team hired an American coach who was with the Redskins, and he decided he wanted to adopt that Savage moniker, and it related to the natives. And for a while, they adopted an Indian head as the logo, but they went away from that. But then there was a movement to change the name because so many people were offended by that period in time where the Redmen referred directly to the natives. And it's a very sensitive topic at McGill because there's a lot of people that argued, rightfully so in my mind, that it wasn't an affront to natives. If you actually went to the roots of where the Redmen came from and where McGill was in the last 20 years since I played, it was really to the Scottish roots. But if I get to, sorry, I'm making a long point here. I was just going to say that with this one, the Eskimos had consulted, but then on the heels of corporate pressure, Boston Pizza pulled their sponsorship. Then Bel Air Direct Insurance was going to pull their sponsorship. The Eskimos,
and that's where I was trying to get to it. If you look even at Jamin in the comments, is so much of it's become about sponsorship, and sponsorship is driven not by corporations. Don't have corporate values. They say they do. They have corporate positioning, right? That lets them look good to shareholders, customers, all these things, and it's important. I'd rather have a good corporate, persona than just come out and say we're just greedy for money and increasing our stock price. But when they start taking criticism, then they have to start making decisions like pulling sponsorships. What I'm saying here is that I think a lot of that criticism, like in the case with McGill, was a perfect example. It was people not in the know. Yeah, there was an American head coach, no offense to Americans, but he didn't know the history of McGill.
Yes.
That changed it. Redmen, oh, that's native. That we're warriors. No, man, stick with what the tradition was.
And Scottish Warriors are pretty tough too.
And people got hurt over that, and so they changed it. The same thing with the Eskimos. I would really like to hear from some northern representatives to see if that was bothering them, or if it was just sort of the politically correct police that were going around that time. If the Inuit were offended by it, I'll tell you what, I'm 100% on side. And I'm even maybe more interested in calling Edmonton the Edmonton Inuit or the Edmonton North rather than going with the Elks or the Evergreens.
But I guess the point of this discussion is, and we'll probably have to wrap it up before a break here pretty quick, is, they released this 75 years of the green and gold, the double E. Is it the same? Like, can you feel like, do you feel it? Like, I feel like I was part of the Eskimo story. So, I mean, from 1949 to 2021, when they changed the name, I feel like I'm part of it, but maybe do the new guys feel like they were part of that? I guess in the football club sense, I read some comments, Gizmo Williams, Hall of Fame, CFLer, Sean Fleming, they're local guys. They're part of the alumni. Are they saying it because they really feel it? Do they feel like they have to when you represent the club that's there? Like,
you know what I think, Chev? I think keeping and I just say I'd call them the North or call them the Inuit, but that double E is really iconic. And even if you look at that crest, which I thought, oh my God, they're putting that on their helmets. No, they're only doing it for the first game. Then they're going back to the double E, and that E that the local artist just put up there is actually a throwback to the 1970s double E. I think as long as they keep that double E tradition, people can get behind it, because that's what it was about, right?
And you know what? There's no greater Edmonton football player that both of you and I played with. He bled green and gold, bleeds it still, than Jed Roberts. And we were going to try and get him on the show, but we spoke to him about this like last year when we were kicking off our show, that we want to get him on the show. And Jed Roberts has Native American Métis blood in him. He played his entire career for the Eskimos, the Hall of Famer. He was like one of the great Canadian defensive tackles, mentor to both of us.
Yeah, knocked me out a couple of times.
Yeah, and here I am thinking, like we chatted on Facebook. Here I am thinking that Jed would be the first one opposed to the name change, because he was Mr. Eskimo. He's like, you know what? To tell you the truth, I always hated the name Eskimos.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
And that's what I want to hear, right? I don't want to hear from corporate sponsors or people on Twitter. I want to talk to people that actually have an opinion on it, other than we might be hurting somebody's feeling.
It's a great discussion, but a great celebration of a great football club that has a very unique position in Canadian culture and history, what they represent, how they've won, what they've done for the game of football, not just in Canada, but they've launched the careers of one of the greatest quarterbacks to break the color barrier in the NFL, which is Warren Moon. That club is responsible for a lot of good in the league, and they do have a right, I believe, to celebrate the heritage of the football team in that city. If you are interested in some live football action before the CFL season, before the NFL season, NGBN TV, we're hosting the American Sevens Football League. It's a semi-professional league in the United States. It plays a 7-man version of gridiron football called American Sevens Football. It was launched in 2015, and its games are played without football helmets or any other protective equipment. So full-on tackle football with no pads. I've seen some clips. I haven't had a chance to watch the games that launched, I believe it was this past weekend on the network. But if you want to watch some when we're talking about all the NFL rule changes for tackling, this is not the league. This is old school football without equipment. And I've seen some clips online, and this is some rough stuff. Like, you're going to see some rough stuff. If you want to watch some intense,
so no leather helmets. I can't like bring an old leather helmet and strap it on. I gotta go nothing.
Yeah, the American Sevens Football League. You could check it out on the NGBN network. The games play live on Sundays. You could check it out this Sunday coming up. We're gonna take a quick break. AC says that his body hurt just watching. It's old school football. You got to check. I'm going to check it out this weekend. I want to check it out. Let's take a break here on the NGBN network. It's the Ride with Chevy and Nasty. We'll come back. We'll have some leftovers for you.
Hello, we are the MD and Chef team. I'm nutritional chef Michael, joined by my beautiful wife, Dr. Isabel, medical doctor and suicide survivor.
Yes, I was dropped into the world of mental illness back in 2013, and by the grace of God, I survived suicide. But here's what I learned. We don't have a mental illness issue. That's the downstream event. We're focusing downstream. We should be focusing upstream on our brain health and all the things that we can be doing to support our brain health. Because you see, it's like mopping up the floor when the sink is overflowing instead of turning off the faucet. So come and join us on the MD and Chef Team show.
Come join us.
Okay, so we are back. It's the Ride with Chevy and Nasty on Nasty on the NGBN TV network. We just announced our first paid sponsor, not paid sponsor, but our first sponsor, title sponsor of the show, Performance Freight Management. They're joining us on the ride. They're going to be a title sponsor. We have We Drone that's sponsoring us. If any of you listening or have some friends that want to get behind us, we'd love to hear from you. We want to grow the show. We want to grow our audience. We want to grow the conversations that we have. The people that join us are people we care about. We're creating this community. And I tell you what, every Tuesday, I have a blast, not just connecting with my buddy, Sheldon. I just texted him and I said, you know what? Great effing segment. Because it was. We talked about something we're passionate. You guys are joining the conversation. Some great comments out there. I want to acknowledge them and honor some of them. AC Sports Live, smoothest man on the radio. You got to check, or on the air. You got to check his show out. It comes on just before us. A couple of comments that I caught. One, he watched about a half of that Sevens, and his body hurts just watching it. Yeah, I've seen some clip.
What'd he say? What'd he say though?
He said,
I think he could give us one or two more plays, Chev. You got two more plays in front of you, inside of you?
Yeah, you know what? I might. And that's actually one of the topics I think we were going to talk about. But the other thing AC said a little early on, which is so awesome about our show and the connections we have, is Kenyon Rambo, who we mentioned early in the show.
Kenyon.
Ohio State alum. Him and I played in the East-West Shrine game together. We played in the Dallas Cowboys together. We played in NFL Europe together. And we wind up playing with the Calgary Stampeders together. He went to high school with AC.
Yeah,
Could
crazy.
you believe that? That's
crazy.
That's unbelievable. That's AC also went to high school with John Grace, but it's not the same John Grace that we know. But hey, we're making connections everywhere we go. Nana Mana says she likes our new sponsors: planes, trains, automobiles, and boats. So Sheldon, let's get to it. It's time for some leftovers. Because every week we have topics that we want to talk about. We never get to them. We put them back in the fridge. We pull them out to eat another time. So let's chop it up. What's the first thing you got for us, Sheldon? I think a slight little retraction.
A little retraction. We're going to go back and we're going to call this one of Nasty's thoughts. A nasty thought. You know, we were talking, I can't remember, it was our James Bond episode or when we're talking movies in general. And it
was our Wolf of Wall Street episode.
Papa comes up on Wolf of Wall Street. And you're like, you're sitting there, I didn't like that movie. It was too much. sex and drugs and it was just a bunch of adrenaline based, too much just a guy's adrenaline movie. And I'm like, no, you totally missed the point. This is a redemption story. This is a guy that lived hard, got caught, did the right thing, and made a comeback. Chev, I was wrong. And man, was I wrong. I was sitting around this weekend. I was watching this series my wife loves called American Greed. And they follow different stories of people that, came up and, just through corruption and fraud, just took advantage of a lot of people. And the number one thing you see, it's a really good series because they follow them from the time they started until the time they finally got locked up for good or ended up dead. And there was a show on Jordan Belfort with The Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
And, my thinking was that at the end of the show, like when he got indicted for fraud and for money laundering, that he went and cooperated with the FBI, helped them bring down more guys. Then he served his jail terms. Well, what he actually did is he just went around for 2 years and ratted out all of his buddies.
Yeah.
He just set them up. He kept them going in the scheme and he ratted them out on wire and got them all taken down. Some of them might not even pursued it if it wasn't for him, but he helped the FBI take them down. Then he gets his prison sentence, sentenced to after destroying thousands of people's future retirements, and not just like the millionaire guys. We're talking to people that had $300,000 invested with him, and that's what they were going to try to survive on for the rest of their life. He took their money. He was sentenced to 4 years, served 22 months. Had an arrangement made where 50% of all future earnings were going to go towards paying them back. Yeah. Wolf of Wall Street, guess what? Do you know what he made on that movie? $1.2 million, including the book deal that he did, because he wrote the story himself. He started writing his own narrative, Chev, and then he got $1.2 million between the book and the movie. Do you know how much of that went to the victims? 22,000. It was horrible, Chev. He's a bad dude.
He's a bad. Well, I'm glad you changed your tune. Jenna,
right now, Chev, he lives in a $27 million house.
Yeah,
he's got a net worth of $115 million as of 2024. He's still owes over $100 million back. He can pay them back, but he won't. And there's no system in place to make sure he at least sticks to the agreement of 50% of future earnings to go back and pay off all those people that should be enjoying their retirement right now. Chevy, that one got me. I had a bad take on it. Yeah, it was a great movie. I love the movie, but it wasn't a movie. It was a true story. And Jordan Belfort was a bad dude that didn't do the right thing. And he lost me.
Well, you know what happened right now is, before we comment on that, I think we're getting kicked off the air now. Jenna in the private chat, let me know if we're off. But if you're watching and you're still following us, kick on over to YouTube or Facebook Live, because we're just about off the NGBN TV network on the connected devices. Basically, Sheldon, we've come up against the hour. We have a whole bunch of stuff we want to talk about. And if people are still following us, we're going to go into a little bit of overtime. Bing, 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 bing. So we got cut off the air. We didn't even get a chance to cut it off the air. But you know what? We're going to ride on a little bit. Everyone loves the overtime segment. We're gonna touch back on Sheldon's point. Yeah, Jenna still loves the movie. She doesn't care what I say or you say. But guess what? Nanamana, she couldn't even get to the end. So yeah, I'm glad you changed your tune, because I was really affected by the message that movie sends. We talk about a network for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, right? That movie spoke to men in their teens if they got to watch it and snuck at their buddy's house, like my son. Their 20s, their 30s and 40s, and they think that is a way to live. But when we talk about guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and the mental health issues that happen, we talk about it because we have this unrealistic expectation of life living like a rock star, and that's not what it is. Being a man is tough. Being a man is making tough choices, good choices, and sometimes you fail, and sometimes you don't win that $3,000 lottery. Well, you know, you're not going to scam people out of their money. You're going to live a good, honest, hard life, and that movie, to me, glorified the exact opposite of living a good, honest, hard life. And there's kids out there that see that as a role model for their life path. And I did not like that. And that might be me, the old guy shouting at the clouds. But you know, when I think of being a mentor to people, That's not a movie I'm throwing in. That's not a movie I'm throwing in and say, watch this to be a good man. And we talk about things that we do for men and the messages we spend. Let's talk about April 6th. Let's talk about our April 6th initiative to save a life, right? We're going to be doing some suicide prevention training on April 6th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time, or 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You go to ngbn.tv/save a life. Dr. Craig, retired U.S. Armed Forces Craig Hanum will be leading the training, and we want to get people aware of that. And so when we talk about the mission of saving people's lives, it's also steering them away from these unrealistic expectations. And so I'm glad you changed your tune on your movie. Let's change pace, or let's change topics to something else in our leftover bin. What do you got for me now, Sheldon?
Well, where do you want to go from here? This one's not a leftover, but McDonald's has partnered up with Krispy Kreme in the United States. And by 2026, we'll be serving exclusively Krispy Kreme donuts in the United States. Chef, I'm not sure that's something that the U.S. needs added to their diets. Like, I don't mind. I have the odd. The other day, we went for two McDoubles each for me and my son because we're driving around running errands. I loved it. But I'm not so sure about the Krispy Kreme starting at 220 calories that's something that we necessarily need to add. But that's not a leftover, Chef. Where do you want to take our leftovers?
Yeah, well, again, I want to take it to another spot that might not be a leftover, but we put in the leftover segment because we didn't know if we're going to get to it or not. And we're in overtime now. Remember, overtime. Kicked off a plane. Take him to the airport, Rip. So Yellowstone star, what's his name? Forey J. Smith.
Yep.
Lloyd. He was kicked off a plane. In his words, he was kicked off a plane because he told the flight attendants that he was not comfortable sitting next to someone who was wearing a mask. Their story is they kicked him off because he was drunk. I don't know who's right or wrong, but he went out and he comes out public, and he's a renowned anti-vaxxer. Like he said he was going to sit out the SAG Screen Actors Guild Awards because he's not vaccinated. He's very vocal about his choice, which is fine. But I'm totally fine with his choice. But when you're making a point to, I don't know, raise a stink about someone else making a choice, whether it benefits their health, I don't want to argue the benefits of a mask or not. But if you decide to come on the show and put a mask on, I have no right to say I'm not comfortable doing a show with you because you're wearing a mask. Well, maybe.
Okay, first off, if you're going to put on a mask doing a show with Chevy and Nancy from the comfort of your own living room, you're an idiot.
Now, probably.
Now, for somebody on the plane, like, okay, I get it. It's like, for me, the way that I'd look at it now, when I see somebody wearing a mask, what goes into my head? You might be sick. Are you sick? Please don't be sick. Please don't put me next to somebody that's going to be coughing and hacking. Because when I see somebody wearing a mask today, that's what I think is you're trying to prevent your own germs coming out. Because God knows if we're in a tube together for the next 3 hours, mask is going to help you absolutely up front, close and personal 100%. If I'm in a tube with you for 3 hours, my confidence, I'm not saying I'm anti-vax, anti-mask, anti-anything. I'm just saying those little germs are going to get out and travel. So,
well, it's
first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wonder if you're sick. I'm going to eyeball you. And if you're not coughing, then I'm going to be, okay, perfect. I'm fine. Right. I'm fine sitting with you.
I'm not going to raise a stink about someone wearing a mask. If they ask me to wear a mask now, and like I wore a mask when I was kind of asked to by, whatever the uncertainty of COVID, I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't feel like my rights were being infringed on. If, they thought that would help. And then after it didn't, okay, whatever. It was a freaking mask. It was a piece of paper on my face, whatever. But for someone else to do it and they choose to, for whatever reason, I'm okay with it because it's not infringing upon my rights. Why would he raise a stink with the flight attendants? And I don't know if they kicked him off because he asked that. No. But he was probably doing a little bit more. But I will say this, to your point, I was driving home from football practice today, dropping my son off, and a car pulled up next to us. And I see a guy in the car next to him wearing a mask, and he's in the car by himself. And I'm like, we're a couple of years removed. And to me, that's odd. Like, I wouldn't, even if I was sick, I probably wouldn't be wearing a mask in my own car while I'm by myself. But my son said, Dad, why would someone be wearing a mask? And the only answer I had to them to this is that period of time, the pandemic, really messed people up. Some people have become so paranoid about getting sick, that it's really in their heads. And maybe it's not just in their heads, but it's affected some people to that degree that that's where their mind goes. But it's also affected other people to the degree that anytime something happens, it's a conspiracy, it's an infringement on their freedoms, and they have another issue that's happened. And somewhere in the middle is everyone else that's just trying to figure out, okay, we're back to normal. Let's just move on. And there's a whole segment of people that are not there yet. And that's what I see when I see a guy wearing a mask in his own car. And that's when I see a guy complaining that someone else is wearing a mask. I see two people affected by the same thing on opposite sides of the spectrum, and they haven't come back to a normal sort of buoyancy. They're still rocking in their boat. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And there's more to the story. I actually did go in there and I watched his social media post afterwards. And it was actually pretty hilarious. He's in there just getting escorted off of the plane, and he comes up there and he sounds just like he does in Yellowstone, right? Well, my publicists with social media say people like it when I'm face to face, and so I was hoping to go face to face, but I couldn't, because there's somebody insisted on wearing a mask, but he's slurring. And he goes, yeah, they said it's because I'm drunk. Yeah, I've been at the airport for 3 hours. Of course I've been drinking. Here in, what city are we in? And somebody goes, Houston. He goes, yeah, Houston. I'm like, okay, dude, there's more to the story than that. But in his case, you know what? Maybe it's on brand for him, right? Like, he's trying to take the old school cowboy approach, right?
Yeah, and Daryl puts it out there.
100%.
Our friend Daryl, Performance Management Freight, our newest title sponsor of the show, he pipes in. Yeah, Forey's an old school cowboy with no filter. In fact,
God bless him for it. Like, I don't mind seeing the characters.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's got his opinion, but it got him kicked off a flight. You got to know when it's, again, no filter or filter got him kicked off a fight. AC Sports ask, why do people get so uptight with what other people do? What does someone else's mask have to do with you? Yeah, that's it is a personal problem.
Yeah.
I always say, so long as it's not hurting you or someone in the vicinity, if it's not dangerous, why you got to mess with people? And the world has become so opinionated over things that don't really matter. That's just noise. And sometimes just close your eyes and read a book. Well, I guess you can't read a book if you close your eyes, but put your noise canceling headphones in when you're in the airplane, throw on the white noise or the sound of the crickets, close your eyes and have a nap. That's what I do in the airplane. I don't care if someone's wearing a mask or if they're wearing a bra. I won't notice because I'm asleep. I'm out.
I can't sleep on a plane. I've never been able to sleep on a plane.
Well, that's because you're huge. So I don't know. Let's pick one more, Sheldon. I'll let you pick the last one of the leftovers for the overtime segment because we didn't want to go too long.
No, you know what? I'm taking a look at this. We've got some good ones that I want to take on to next week. I really do want to get into the Tyson Jake Paul thing.
Yeah,
because it puts me in my mind. What if I had, like AC said, what if I have one or two more plays left? Right?
Yeah. And let's do that one next week.
We're going to save that one for next week. The other thing we're talking about is the life of excess and what people go after. Well, you know what? People in the celebrity music industries, movie industries aren't immune from this either. P. Diddy, Sean Combs, he's in a little bit of trouble this week, Chef.
He's in a lot of trouble.
He's in a whole lot of trouble this week.
When the Office of Homeland Security raids your home, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I think this is one. I don't want to say a whole lot about it this week because I'm going to get caught up on the story. But apparently right now he had 3 of his homes, Miami, LA, and some other fabulous city, probably New York.
Yeah.
His homes raided. They went into his safes, grabbed phones, electronic devices. And this is all tied into a civil case that was brought against him a few months ago. Some aspiring young musician that he brought under his wing and allegedly absolutely took total control of her life when she had another relationship outside of him. He blew up the guy's car. That he's not a good guy. The money went to his head. He had absolute power. He controlled her. They'd throw massive parties, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole works. a lot of people implicated in this, including guys like Jay-Z, allegedly, Prince Harry,
guys like the Prince Harry. Yeah.
Prince Harry.
Yeah.
So this is a story that I think we're going to have to follow along this week, because this is an example of how things that boys will be boys 20, 30 years ago, right or wrong, you could get away with it, especially if you had money. But nowadays, it's going to come out. It is going to come out.
And you know what? A story like this feeds the machine. You talk about the Jeffrey Epstein story with the pedophile island that he had, and all the stories and rumors and conspiracy theories about P. Diddy and that Hollywood elite, or as they call them, the Illuminati. It feeds into all of that. And, you know, the fact that Diddy, as Jamin said, escaped in his airplane to an island in the Caribbean, you know, it reeks of guilt, I guess. I don't know, when you take off, when your homes are being raided. There's going to be more to follow in this. So much of that, as we call it, the tea with P. Diddy. But yeah, I've been kind of looking at some of the clips. I've been reserving some of my judgment because a lot of it is being put out in sort of that way that kind of manipulates the narrative to be like, oh, he's this or he's that.
I read the accusations from that from the star before him, and I think there's some smoke on this one. I'm going to wait to see what shakes out. The same as we did with Chad Kelly. I mean, you got to wait and see before you jump to an opinion, but this does not look good.
Well, I think you could jump to an opinion. I just don't think you could jump to a conclusion.
Well, that's why I said allegedly.
Yeah. Like I think, was it Janice says that 50 Cent has it in for P. Well, a lot of guys do. I mean, Tupac rapped about P. Diddy's Bad Boy Records, and he wound up dead. You know, like there might be some depth. Well, there is depth to this. If, like I said, if the Office of Homeland Security is raiding your home, it's not a knock on the door by the sheriff's office with their little vest. This is the big boys coming to get you. And there is something going on that's going to be revealed soon. And I mean, for people who crave this type of big story, it's big. You know what? Last thing for the leftovers. Last week, we talked about Kate Middleton, right? Before Christmas, she had her abdominal surgery, disappeared from the public. Everyone speculated that she from death to some sort of weird Brazilian wax, I believe it was. Someone tell me about this Brazilian butt thing. Jenna, do you know anything about this Brazilian butt thing? People created all kinds of rumors. Then there was the doctored photo that led to even more suspicion about her health and concerns. So we broke it because Sheldon is very smart, mentioning that she has abdominal cancer. Well, she did come out and release a message that she did have abdominal cancer. And, you know, it was like, I guess everyone in the world could give themselves a big high five and say, hey, yeah, the Princess of Wales is sick. And for a moment there, I was like, yeah, Sheldon was right. But you know what? When I actually listened to her message, what kind of brought me down was when she mentioned, yes, I have this condition and my husband and I have to find a way to explain this to our children in a way that makes sense to them. And that's when I peeled back those layers of this sensational story and blah, blah, blah. This is a woman's life. This is a family's life. And really that paparazzi, that quest for knowledge, that insatiable thirst for what they do, I think it crossed the line this time. And although we were right, I kind of feel bad that we had fed that story, but I don't know where you're at with this, Sheldon, but I just thought it was interesting that we should bring it up and kind of put a cap on that one.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. And it's, you know, absolutely my heart goes out to anybody going through those situations. But let's not forget that this is the royal family and you know, there's certain things that go along with being the Duchess or the princess or the prince or the king or the queen. And one of it is going to be scrutiny, right? And it's a shame the way it came out based on the doctored photos. She's probably been doctoring photos for years, to be honest, right?
Probably.
Because it's a hobbyist for her, and she's probably doing it while in recovery. But what was the royal family saying? Never explain, never justify, something like that. Never, you know. So never. I don't know if she was forced to come out outside of the timeline that she wanted to. I think that, that she was ready to, but she wasn't going to rush it, and good for her, because you're right. How do you prepare your kids for that? How do you explain this to your family? But unlike the rest of us, I think everything that they do is so under a microscope. It's rough timing, but it's not going to go away. I mean, the Royals have been experiencing this for the last hundreds of years, right? And never more so in the last 25, 30 years with social media and the internet. But
they're definitely under a different type of microscope. And but again, in that moment when I listened to her statement, and she specifically mentioned, my husband and I have to find a way to explain this to, and I thought about my children. I thought about my boys. There was a point in time where their sister-in-law, my sister-in-law at the time, their mom's sister passed away from breast cancer. And to have to explain that to a child, or what's, it really hit home for me that this is still a person, and maybe there are certain things that should be off limits. I think even a few years ago, when Donald Trump was in power, and some people started attacking his son, like, yeah, I'm not a Trump fan. I'm going to be the first one. Rubio might not like to hear that. I'm not a Trump fan, but when you go after someone's kids before they've had a chance to become who they're going to be and what they're going to, just because you hate the parents, you're not giving them a chance for growth. You're not. And so I thought this was similar. Like, you got to, I don't know. I just, it gave me a pause for thought that I think the world was a little too harsh in trying to collect their information and give themselves high five for discovering what was wrong with the princess. And I think, in general, things like that, we should think about it, because again, that insatiable thirst for the next story, the next sensational thing happens, this kind of brings us to where we are right now. Like, nothing matters anymore. Yesterday, a boat hit a dock, hit a bridge, the bridge fell. Tomorrow, something else is going to happen. Next week, there's going to be a school shooting, and we just move on and move on and move on. And we choose, through our own thought and our own way of processing, lack of empathy. We lack empathy.
Though, that's interesting too, though, because we're talking about celebrities.
Yeah.
And 100% celebrities are people, but we are kind of drawn to discussing, the dramatic things that happen, and now we're expressing our sympathy for her, which is the appropriate thing to do.
Well, if you're looking at the comments,
200,000 people just died in North America today from whatever cases that nobody's going to talk about.
Yeah,
only their family knows. We are drawn to celebrities, and we're drawn to these things. We learn lessons from the celebrities. The royal family is meant to be sort of a beacon of how we're supposed to be. I see what's going on in the text.
Yeah, you see what's going on. I'm laughing because Jenna, Jamin, and Nanamana are having a nice conversation about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and Amber Heard taking a dump on Johnny Depp's pillow. But yeah, I guess we crave this stuff, right?
We do, and we're not talking. The same thing's happening in Calgary, and the same thing's happening in San Francisco.
Well, I don't know anyone that's taking a dump on someone's pillow.
I promise you, it happened somewhere in the city today. It might have been a kid, I don't know, but we're not immune to this, and this is a place where we talk about it so that we can process it in our own minds. Maybe because we're not being chased by saber-tooth tigers anymore. We don't have those real dangers and real threats. Saber-tooth. It is a saber-tooth tiger.
I think that's like a new superhero.
Yeah, well,
Saber-tooth.
Well, that's what we've all become, going after these great stories and drama, because we have a safe bed to sleep in and we have food in front of us, and so we find our danger and intrigue in other places, and that's just unfortunately, for better or worse, that's human nature. And Chev has got us talking about it on the show. Absolutely. I've never talked this much about the Royals in my life.
Me neither. I could care less about them, actually.
I do now, though. I'm interested now. I hope she's okay.
I hope she's okay too. Like, you don't want anyone to suffer, but you know what? We appreciate that you find your danger and intrigue all over the place, but we appreciate the 1 hour and 20 minutes to a half that you spend with us on Tuesday night, because we bring you all kinds of danger and intrigue. At least we think so. But we should wrap this up. We should take it home. Again, let's thank Jenna for being a great producer. Not only is she pushing all the buttons and getting all the graphics up, she's also engaging in the conversation with our great fans. Thank you to all the fans for participating in conversation. It's kind of gone a little bit everywhere, but again, we're here at heart to talk great conversations, have great stories, right? We always said great stories, have great conversations, And that's what the ride is. It's not a campfire, it's a road trip. And we're so glad to have you with us on the road trip each week. We're here on the NGBN.TV network. Remember, April 6th, we're saving a life, right? It's our suicide prevention training. We want as many people to register as possible so we can get this training out there, so we can recognize the signs and we can help someone. Please, 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 if you do anything for us, spread the word about this training. We want to get so many people trained up that we can eliminate this it's a real scourge. It's a real scourge in society, and we're trying to do something about it. That's my last word, Sheldon. I give the last word to you before we knock it home and see people next week.
Guys, as always, thanks for joining us. It means a lot to us. We love the interaction going on. And guys, we'll see you all next week right here, same time, same station, right here on The Ride.